I'm Danny Dyer, and this is the Real Football Factories International. I played Tommy Johnson in the film The Football Factory, which was all about football violence.
Fucking nutters.
Then I travelled the UK and met the real football firms. Now, I'm going international. 9 countries in 2 months. Around the hooligan world in 60 days. A whole new level of football violence. We'll be in riots. We'll get tear gassed, chased, and even shot at. It's going to be quite a trip. Welcome to the International Football Factories. This week I'm in a country where there's bombings, shootings and murder. No, I'm not in Iraq. I'm in Holland. We're going to find out why one of the most tolerant and liberal countries in the world has some of the most violent football hooligans. We're going to show you a different side to Holland, where tolerance has turned to hate.
Feyenoord, fuck you all.
Where the mobs rule. Where the streets are being turned into war zones.
It comes from Switzerland, it's like TNT.
Where football violence has rocked the liberal culture of the country. When we think of Holland, we mostly think about the red light district or smoking a great big joint outside a coffee shop. But the Dutch ain't just about sex, drugs and clogs.
Overnight, the normally placid city of Amsterdam acquired throughout Europe the name Riot City.
Between 1960 and 1980, there were riots across the country. This was no anti-war demo. The people fought the army for the right for cheap housing. So although we see Holland as a nice liberal place to go for a stag do, the Dutch have got quite a bit of form for violence, and it was all about to kick off at the football. But guess what? It was us, the English, who exported hooliganism to Holland. When Spurs rioted against Feyenoord in Rotterdam back in the 70s.
That's really the moment when hooliganism was born in Holland, and throughout the 70s and really thereafter it always remained very Anglophile.
This incident has been dubbed the day Dutch football lost its innocence. Some say Dutch society has been getting nastier ever since.
Oh my God!
First off, I'm going to meet Paul Voss, who gained the trust of the top Dutch firms to write his book on hooligans. He's going to give me a briefing on the Dutch hooligan culture.
In Holland you have the big 4 firms. They are from the big 4 cities in the country. It's Feyenoord from Rotterdam, Ajax from Amsterdam, FC The Hague and FC Utrecht.
So let me get that right. The 4 main firms are Ajax from Amsterdam, Feyenoord from Rotterdam, FC Den Haag from Den Haag and FC Utrecht from Utrecht. So those are the 4 main firms that have been at war with each other for years.
They can be very dangerous because the hate is very, very intense. Some of them told me, when I see that guy or when I see a supporter or a hooligan of that crew or that mob, I can kill him.
The Dutch hooligan scene was more serious than I thought. Gaining the trust of these firms in Holland wasn't going to be easy. I'm in Amsterdam, Holland's capital city, better known for its tourism, but it's also home to Holland's biggest club, Ajax. Pretty impressive stadium, eh? Don't touch Upton Park, but it's got something about it. Ajax's firm is called F-Side. Like all firms in Holland, they take their name from the part of the stadium where they watch the game. So this is the F-Side. Basically what that is, this is where all the proper firm come, where all the nutters. This is the only way they come in. You can tell it's a bit battered. You know, it's quite funny that they've got no horns, but they're going to bring a horn in. No bottles, obviously, and no cans. Just blades. Just blades and chibs. And if you've got a spring cosh, fine. Ajax's main rivals are Feyenoord, and this is the deepest rivalry in Holland.
Ajax hates Feyenoord and Feyenoord hates Ajax. They told me it was because, you know, they are the two biggest clubs. They had the numbers, you know, they are the biggest firms, and they hate each other.
Ajax are from the capital, Amsterdam, and Feyenoord from the second city, Rotterdam. Their cities are only 50 miles away from each other, but seem worlds apart. This rivalry is born out of the different backgrounds of the two cities. Rotterdam is working class and built around the dock industry. Amsterdam is more cosmopolitan and middle class. When traditional industries went into decline, Rotterdam went with it. Amsterdam became the wealthier of the two cities, and this resentment has continued to fuel the rivalry.
Amsterdam is a winner of the last 20 years, Rotterdam is a loser, and that somewhat parallels what's happened with Ajax and Feyenoord.
After the break, we're going to meet the hooligans.
They fuck with us, we fuck harder with them.
And I'm going to experience the bitter rivalries for myself at the Feyenoord Ajax derby. Welcome back to Amsterdam, where I'm sampling the best of Dutch culture. I used to have a bit of edge about me, you know, I was quite a cool actor. I'm now on a Foxy red bike, nearly got run over there. Oh, sorry mate. Nearly got run over by an 80-year-old man, so that sums it up for me. Ta-da! I've discovered that the biggest rivalry here is between Ajax and Feyenoord. I'm going to find out why this rivalry has become the fiercest in Holland. In 1989, the hatred between the two literally exploded.
2 homemade bombs have exploded at a football match in Holland, injuring 19 people, 9 of them seriously.
Feyenoord attacked Ajax with 2 homemade nail bombs. Ajax's stadium was turned into a war zone. 14 people were injured, and it was a miracle that nobody was killed. This incident was widely covered by the international media. Journalists reported the growing reputation of Dutch hooligans.
Holland is fast taking over as Europe's most troubled footballing nation.
This was a major turning point. The government, desperate to combat hooliganism, introduced English-style safety measures, all-seater stadiums and CCTV. But none of these changes solved anything. They simply moved the violence from the stands onto the streets. This Ajax firm is serious. These guys are so feared that the police are trying to make being a member of the F-side a criminal offence, a banned organisation, like a terrorist group. Many of their firm don't want to meet us as they're very active and have court cases. Despite their deep distrust of the media, some of Ajax's firm have agreed to talk to us if they are disguised. This is Ajax's firm, F-side. Ajax are possibly the biggest firm in Holland. They're famous for their hatred of Feyenoord and their bomb making. As soon as we sat down, guess what the boys wanted to talk about?
Feyenoord's got the problem with the second city syndrome. We're number 1. We want more, and with hooliganism and on the field also. It's fucking jealousy.
When I went to Ajax's stadium, I saw the Jewish Star of David. I asked the guys about this Jewish connection.
Well, they call us Jews, and we make the Jewish star, and we make the F in it.
Now, despite these anti-Jewish taunts, Ajax hooligans have taken on this identity.
We're not Jewish, but Amsterdam was a Jewish city, especially before the Second World War. Look how stupid they are. Rotterdam was flattened in the Second World War.
Yeah.
Boom. And most Nazis, neo-Nazis from Holland come from Rotterdam. How stupid can you be?
They told me about the bombs they make and how they turn the grounds into war zones.
Well, you make a bomb and you throw it. But not like Feyenoord with nails in it and shit. Come on, you know?
People hear the bomb and everybody screams. They love it, you know?
When you see smoke and you have bam, 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 fucking it's great, man. Come on, attacking us, you know? Show us some.
These guys told me they had explosive experts, but I didn't know they were going to bring the dynamite along with them.
This one of the bomb. It comes from Switzerland. It's like TNT. Yeah, there's bombs everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. Why you can buy weapons, you can buy bombs. They fuck with us, we fuck harder with them.
We go harder.
And it's the same thing for the other guys.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Imagine this in Britain. Hooligans with bombs who were prepared to use them. In 1997, the top boy of Ajax was murdered when the F side clashed with hooligans from Feyenoord. They were not even playing each other on the day of the fight. They met on the side of a motorway just outside Amsterdam.
Bij rellen tussen supporters van Ajax en Feyenoord bij Beverwijk vanmiddag is dus 1 dode gevallen. De dode is waarschijnlijk een van de leiders van de Ajax-gang.
Van alle Stanley-messen. Echt honkbalknuppels, gummiknuppels.
Carlo Picconi, Ajax's top boy, was beaten to death by Feyenoord hooligans with knives, hammers and chains. Police seized an arsenal of weapons, including baseball bats, Molotov cocktails and electric stun guns.
I think that was the point that everything was changing in Holland. A new generation was coming. That was the example of them.
The government was forced to admit that hooliganism was spiralling out of control. The riot police were unable to deal with the escalation of violence, so the government called in the army. The government gave permission for army choppers to airlift riot cops into hooligan hotspots. Carlo Picconi was a godlike figure in the Ajax firm, and they still honour him today by keeping his seat in the stadium. I spoke to one of his close friends. Usually if a hooligan goes to the floor, the opposition leaves him alone. But our man's best friend, Carlo, was stabbed to death in front of him while he was on the floor. This is still very raw.
I can't talk about it. You know what I mean? It went wrong, and then, well, there was not an honest fight, and that's the only thing I've say about it. We're not done with them yet. Never, I think.
Their hatred for each other was almost biblical. Vengeance was on the cards. I'd never heard of anything like it. And the Feyenoord Ajax derby was the next day. I was going to the match to experience this hatred for myself. CCTV and all-seater stadiums haven't really been much use here. Feyenoord have set fire to Ajax's stadium, and there have been mass riots around the ground. It could go off at any moment. So here we are at Feyenoord Stadium, nicknamed the Tub, and famous as having one of the most intense atmospheres in Holland. I'm heading round the back of the stadium, where the Ajax fans are about to arrive on the train. The police have come out in force for this one, and we'll have to try and keep both sets of fans apart. The helicopters are out, the horses are out, riot vans, everything. Right, so this is how the Ajax come in, yeah? The gate's closed at the moment. Obviously, Old Bill all the way along here, yeah? Right. Now, when you're an Ajax fan, you come out in Rotterdam, Feyenoord, yeah? This is what you're faced with, that. Bit intimidating. You wouldn't want to turn up just with your bird, for instance. But I would think if it goes off, you know, there's nowhere to run, you know what I mean? It's Hoffman's. Hello? Yes? Okay, yeah, sweet. Sweet. Let's get in the mix of it. Nice to meet you, man. Sweet, sweet, boys, sweet. My reputation precedes me. I only hope they don't think I'm in Green Street. This is a high-risk game. The authorities have come up with a novel security measure. Away fans have to buy a special combined football and travel ticket called a combi, and they travel straight from their city to the ground under police escort. So the way it works, what I'm thinking, what I've been told, is that Ajax get off at the station, they get fed through this mad tube here, look. So there's no contact with the Feyenoord at all. They'll wait along here, hoping there's a couple of stragglers that come out they can throw a few bottles at maybe. But, you know, they're on top of it, the old Bill, clearly.
The Ajax train's just arrived, so we'll see if the police can keep the two mobs separated.
There's the Ajax, look, yeah. You can see the Ajax boys, look. See their little nuts popping over the top of the thing trying to give it.
The police get Ajax in without any trouble, and Feyenoord start to disperse and go into the stadium, ready for the big game.
Here I go, ready to go in there, into the fucking melting pot.
Unfortunately, we couldn't get the cameras in for this game. Feyenoord didn't play well, and they lost 4-0, but their fans remained passionate throughout.
The atmosphere was electric, they didn't stop singing. I know they feel a little bit being a West Ham fan because the passion of the supporters sometimes, most of the time, the team can't live up to it, you know?
Feyenoord lost, so the tension's higher. The crowd begin to turn on the police as they lead away the fans. Ajax leave the stadium, chanting at some of the Feyenoord fans who are still down by the ground. The police are on top of things for this game. I'd been hearing a lot about Feyenoord's reputation, so we'll be staying in Rotterdam to find out more about the city and their firm.
Rotterdam's a gritty port city, and the two other teams here are Sparta Rotterdam and Excelsior. But anyone will tell you the only team worth talking about is Feyenoord. And I've heard they got a proper firm.
We've seen how the Feyenoord Spurs game in 1974 marked the birth of hooliganism in Holland. Spurs attacked Feyenoord in Rotterdam, but 10 years later, Spurs returned to play Feyenoord. This time, they were ready for them. 3 Spurs fans were stabbed.
We went in the wrong end, and we didn't know, bought the tickets for this other end, and they just set upon us, all Dutch, and we tried to jump out the end.
Feyenoord's hooligan reputation began to spread abroad. By the late 90s, they were taking on big firms like Man United's Red Army. Feyenoord's hooligans were becoming one of the most feared firms in Europe, and the rave scene was growing big in Holland. While most people were popping pills and getting loved up, the hooligans saw the raves as another place to kick off. In the UK, the rave scene killed off hooliganism, but it was the total opposite in Holland. The fights intensified and police shut down many of the parties because of violence and the hooligans' involvement with drugs. Feyenoord have continued to cause chaos abroad. They recently rioted in Nancy and fought with the police in the stadium. Feyenoord were due to play the next tie against Spurs, and many were talking about revenge. But now Feyenoord have been banned because of their violence in the competition. Rotterdam is the home of gabba music, and many of the hooligans are into the scene. DJ Paul Elstad is one of the founders of gabba music and a staunch Feyenoord fan. Paul is a hero to many of the hooligans and sometimes goes to games with them. Paul's agreed to meet up and tell me more about the Feyenoord firm and the gabba rave scene. Gabba music was spearheaded by Paul, who also plays at the raves that the hooligans go to.
If there's a game on Sunday and Saturday there's a big party, yeah, I think a lot of guys like to go to the party, yeah, go nuts the whole night and till in the morning, and then don't go to sleep because you don't wake up when you go to sleep, of course. So go straight to a game.
Many of the parties are the night before the game. The hooligans take drugs to help them stay up all night. They continue from the rave to the football, and the drugs fuel the clashes at the match on the next day.
There's also, I heard the name rellepoeder. That's called riot powder. That's the cocaine they use when they go when they have a fight, when they go to other firms or something.
I asked Paul about the popularity of his music and the growth of hooliganism in Holland.
I think the last years it's more popular to be a hooligan. Everybody wants to be a hooligan down nowadays.
Hooliganism had spiralled out of control. Paul had threats made against him just because he was a DJ from Rotterdam.
I had to play in Amsterdam a few years ago, a Thunderdome party, and the promoters just called me the day before and said, Paul, you better not come because we can't guarantee your safety, because they heard a lot of rumors that if I was going to play there, a group of people were going to attack me because I'm from Rotterdam, so they had to cancel the gig.
I was surprised to hear that Paul had received threats to stay out of Amsterdam. When we come back, I'm going to feel some of this Dutch hostility for myself when I travel to Den Haag on my journey into the dark world of hooligan culture in Holland. And I'll see how their rivalry with Ajax has reached a whole new level. Welcome back to my journey around the Dutch hooligan firms. I'm on my way to the next city on our tour.
Windmill, windmill for the land, the forever hanging. Take it all out on your stride, it is taking for.
We're heading to Den Haag to meet the next firm on our journey. Although Amsterdam's the capital, Den Haag is both home to the Dutch Parliament and many of its politicians. Ironically, it's also home to one of the most anti-establishment Dutch firms in Holland. The team's Den Haag, their firm's north side. Den Haag is an old-fashioned working-class football club. They've been dubbed the Millwall of Holland. Den Haag's main rivals are Ajax. Their hatred dates back to this game in the late 80s. It was a defining moment in their rivalry. Den Haag fans threw bombs and flares into the Ajax end. The game had to be stopped after 45 minutes as police fought running battles with fans. Television images of motionless bodies being dragged out of the stadium shocked Dutch audiences. We were about to meet with the Den Haag crew when we got a call. Right, this is the situation. They're not happy that we've spoke to Ajax. So they've basically called it off. You know, they don't want to meet us. What they did say was that you know, they could meet us, but they can't guarantee our safety. So what does that mean? So it's basically a no-no, isn't it? Which is very disappointing, you know what I mean? It's, you know, we've been running about like lunatics, you know, all over Holland, you know. You got to understand, though, these are people that are very serious about what they do. It just goes to show the level of hate between the clubs as well, just in the fact that because we've even spoke to Ajax, you know, they're not going to have nothing to do with us now. But it's disappointing, you know, but we've got to pick ourselves up and crack on, you know. The flares and bombs in the stadium lit a fire that's still burning today.
Grote vlammen sloegen vannacht uit het Ajax supportershome naast het trainingsveld bij de arena.
The Ajax guys told me that the Den Haag firm had burnt down their supporters' home.
Well, they came in the night, in the middle of the night, very tough, hey, you know what I mean? Suckers. Yeah. And they burned our clubhouse down. But now it's even more nicer, so thanks. Fuck them.
They told me about their retaliation attack against Den Haag and their supporters' home.
And after that, a year or so after that, we attacked their clubhouse. And they say there was only 8 young guys from 15 years old or something. But there was 40 guys, but they all ran off.
A year after Ajax's clubhouse was burned down, 70 of the Ajax firm attacked Den Haag's clubhouse and stabbed 2 of them. As well as torching the clubhouse, we were told that they tried to set fire to 2 of the fans. This led the police to block the motorways between Den Haag and Amsterdam. The government declared a state of emergency. The extreme measures that the government used are a reflection of Dutch society becoming less tolerant. Another example of Holland's hardening attitude to law and order. The new millennium saw the rise of a far-right party that reflected this intolerance. It was led by a man called Pim Fortuyn, a fierce critic of Holland's liberal culture. His attack on Dutch liberalism continues to this day. He criticised Holland's liberal culture and demanded harsher laws on immigration and law and order.
The people are saying the same like Pim Fortuyn now. They are saying we have to punish people, we have to attack hooliganism. It's changed, the times are changed.
So this guy was saying what many Dutch people have been thinking for some time. But not everyone agreed with him. He was assassinated in 2002. His popularity in far-right politics has pushed the current government's policies to the right. Football hooligans became public enemy number 1. The hooligans have felt the brunt of this hardening attitude as the Dutch government have cracked down on them.
So who's winning? The authorities or the hooligans? And what effect is this having on Dutch culture?
While the police have been coming down hard on hooligans, the clubs have been trying to find a middle ground.
We try to know them, and we want them to know us, so that we can influence them.
Many of the clubs have tried to pacify the hooligans by giving them their own supporters' homes and representatives who have a say on the club's board. I've come to Utrecht, the 4th and final city on my journey. I'm going to see at first hand this carrot and stick approach. Utrecht were the first firm to get supporters home, but they were the first to be heavily policed. Many of the Utrecht firm are on banning orders and have done time for football violence. They don't have the numbers like Ajax and Feyenoord, but they're a tight-knit firm.
Fuck you all.
Fuck you.
Utrecht for life!
The Utrecht crew are hardcore, and these boys are not always kind to people who come to visit them.
There was a train coming to Utrecht. Train with Feyenoord hooligans, shouting at us, calling us names. But we are standing there near the rail track. We have bottles filled with petrol and oil. The best mixture to keep it burning. So they come by and I saw them, the fuckers, with all the long hairs in the neck. Dirty. Still, sometimes I heard them shout, "Ah! Fuckers!" Yeah, because why? The train was burning, and the train was burning into the rail station. Feyenoord, fuck you all. Yeah! Yeah! That's what I got to say, you know. No more, no less. The roof's on fire! We don't need that mother, let the fucking mother burn! Burn, motherfucker! Burn!
I arranged to meet Bobby. He was going to introduce me to the firm. Bobby was one of Utrecht's most respected hooligans. Only in Holland would this make him an ideal candidate to be the president of the supporters club. Believe it or not, he's in discussion with the football club's board. Utrecht has got the biggest supporters home in Europe, so I wanted Bobby to show me around.
Quite an English feel to it.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because we think Utrecht is a typical of English football club.
Okay.
And we like to have the same idea as the English
Yeah, I love
firms.
You've got an old Dixon of Dock Green up there, that's quite mad.
Dock Green.
You've got a nice West Ham scarf, that's the best thing you've got. You've got an old Man United scarf up there, and I'll help you take that down later. Tetley's bitter, I mean, this is, I love it now.
Yes.
I've never seen nothing like this. You've got the ground just there, the pitch just there, you know.
It's very.
I mean, that's pretty amazing.
It's very unique in Holland. Okay, I will show you the court.
I love it.
This is our Bunnik side. This is the famous side of here. It started the football violence.
Your firm will be plotted here, yeah?
Yes.
And all the families around here?
That's the main tribune, the family tribune, and the
away supporters?
Yes, the away
Wow,
supporters.
it's just amazing that you've got the supporters club right there.
Yes.
You know, it's so you're not, you know, you're a firm, but at the same time you've been allowed that place in this club. I think that's quite amazing. There's a reason for that. Obviously, you've got a certain amount of trust with the club. Yes.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about your role as the president.
Yes, now I'm the president for maybe 2.5 years. I represent 6,000 supporters,
okay,
and maybe 200 to 300 hooligans. Because
okay,
I was a former hooligan, I was as fanatic as the other guys, and I can talk with anyone, and that's why all the guys ask me if I want to do this.
Okay, so you can deal with the hardcore hooligans, and you can also deal with, you know, the sensible people at the same time.
Yes, I also have to talk with the club, with the football club.
Oh yeah, okay.
No, I already do that.
See, that's a good thing. See, we don't come across that very often. You know, you have a one thing. You know, you can't really flitter between both. I'm very impressed about that.
It was time to talk to some of the hardcore hooligans. These boys will take on anyone who wants it. They're known as the Bunnik side, and they're infamous for using weapons. I was a bit nervous, so it was good to get some beers down us for a bit of Dutch courage.
Cheers, my son. Thank you very much. First of all, I'm going to ask you the obvious question. Cheers, mate. Cheers. Right.
On Chelsea.
Chelsea? Who are the Bunnik side? Right.
It all started in the early 70s. We were all standing on this side of the stadium, called the Bunnik side. Bunnik is a town, little town, behind the stand, and that's why the name comes from.
Now, in 1980, I heard that you smashed up your own stadium. Why?
It was the last match of the season. The stadium should be demolished for the new stadium. So we thought, well, let's do it ourselves, and we did.
So let's just get this straight. These guys actually tore down their old stadium because a new one was going to be built. It needed to be demolished, and the boys thought they were the best people for the job.
We thought, well, it's normal. It's normal behavior. It's going to be teared apart. Let's do it ourselves. But it's been on television for weeks. It went all over the world. For years after, when you went on holidays abroad, you were saying, oh, I'm from Utrecht. Oh, you teared down the stadium. Yes.
Yeah, have a pipe of that, look.
Let's see it. Well, here you have a picture of
one
it.
of the...
Here you see the boys in action.
Would you say hooliganism in Holland is becoming more dangerous?
The danger lies in the fact that it's not more possible to have an all-out fight. So if you want to do some damage to someone else, you have to do it fast, and you have to use something to get a result. So that makes it more dangerous than it used to be, because almost everybody now uses weapons, and especially knives.
What about you lot? Do you use weapons, or sometimes you have to, yeah?
We were famous for using bicycle chains.
Chain gang.
Okay.
And bats, knives, Stanley knives, anything that can be used. Bottles,
Okay. What about any of you's ever been to prison? Anyone been, yeah?
I've sitting for 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
Just for fighting?
Fighting against Ajax.
Against Ajax?
Sure.
With bicycle chains or?
He also.
Yeah? The pair of you?
But there were also Ajax supporters in the prison.
Ah,
and
okay.
they don't want to fight with us in the prison.
No. 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 Not when you got him sitting next to you, I wouldn't have thought, you know what I mean? Not when you got him sitting next to you, a proper mad boat, you know what I mean? It could definitely have a tear up, there's no two ways about that.
Prison, fines and banning orders are the price to pay as a hooligan. I'd started to gain the trust of these guys. They told me how the police were cracking down on them. Theo's been in the firm for 25 years, he's had 2 bans and served prison time for football violence. Theo showed me the security around the ground.
There's a security box. They control the whole stadium with the cameras. Everywhere hangs cameras. In the stadium sits police, but also security from Utrecht, undercover police officers. They may be a friend of you. You don't know.
The surveillance is not just in the stadium. The guys took me back inside the supporters' home to talk about how this was also being watched by police with hidden cameras.
They listen, you know, they follow the boys, and the boys now in jail.
Theo also told me how the authorities had shut down the supporters' home, but then reopened it. The police realised it was easier to keep an eye on the firm if they knew where they were.
We're still open because they know when we close, 1,500 boys came outside, and then you have more problems than now.
I'd seen how the hooligans were integrated into the clubs and realised that this is why it's so hard to get rid of them. Despite tougher policing and new measures, hooliganism is not going away in Holland.
After the break, we look at the young firms coming through.
Utrecht hooligans forever.
And the future of hooliganism in Holland.
Welcome back to my journey into the world of football factories. We're going to see how the Dutch government have taken extreme measures to deal with football hooligans. Suspected hooligans have their pictures put on the internet and a programme similar to Crime Watch, where viewers are encouraged to turn the hooligans in.
It's crazy. It's a crazy country. You're talking about a liberal country? No fucking way. This is a police state.
Many of the hooligans feel like they're being treated a lot worse than they deserve.
Even murderers and child molesters and everything, they're not allowed to put with their faces on telly. But hooligans? You're a football supporter? You're nothing.
I was told that because of this, the hooligans have become more violent towards the police, making it more dangerous for police and the fans.
It rolls a riot van and sparks excitement in the boys, but the policemen look annoyed.
In Rotterdam in 1999, rioting was so bad that police gunned down 4 Feyenoord fans. But the hooligans shot back. The police seriously injured 4 of them. The authorities think the riots were planned beforehand. They were running battles in the streets, and it took 750 police to restore order. Whatever measures the authorities take, the hooligans find a way around it. Or so it seems. In this climate of organised violence, some of the clubs are too scared to even ban them.
You have to listen to them because they can use their thing, and that's violence.
It's not so much that they've encouraged the hooligans, but the Dutch clubs are afraid of cracking down on them because the chairman is afraid of the fans. The fans know where he lives. The fans can come and do something to him or his family. So the clubs won't do anything to stop them.
Despite these fears of reprisals, there's one man driving the fight against the firms. Former Ajax chairman Michael van Praag now heads a task force that's pushing for stronger anti-hooligan laws and sentences similar to those in the UK. These laws might help to target the older guys who the police know because they've been around for years. but they don't know the younger guys coming through because they organise themselves in more secretive groups. I wanted to meet some of the younger generation at Utrecht. These boys look up to the older guys, but they're also carving out a name for themselves.
Utrecht hooligans forever.
I'd already met the first generation of guys who had been around from the 70s. Bobby, the supporters club president, is part of a second generation of hooligans who emerged in the 90s.
The second generation and the third generation are suited in this area.
Bobby took me to the younger guys' side of supporters' home, which had a very different feel to the older guys' section. They even had a VIP area.
Oh, so basically, this is like a VIP bit, yeah?
This is the VIP
for the
room.
top boys.
For the top boys. On normal Sunday, there are sofas. Sometimes we have the DJ among us.
Very impressive. Loving all this. Shit. Sorry, I'll sort that out. It's something here, look. Whack that on there, look. Get the old ring on there, look. That's it. Whack there you go, look. Sweet as.
Bobby introduced me to Rhodey, who's part of the third generation of hooligans. These younger guys have emerged post-2000. They pre-arrange fights the day before the matches to avoid the police.
How do you get round the police? You know, the banning orders?
Rhodey is one of them who visit the other club a day before the match, and they ring each other, and then they're looking up for a confrontation.
Okay.
We're happy if we got a fight on the station with the 40 against 40.
Yeah. What sort of tools do you use?
I see that the newer generation are easier get a knife or a baseball bat or get the buckles.
If it's a large group and you're with 10 guys, so what you gonna do? Fight with your hands? Then they hit you.
Of course.
So we use weapons.
Any of you lot worry about, you know, being injured or going to prison? Is that a worry for you, or have you got no fear?
Yeah, I don't think. Just do it.
Just do it, yeah?
Yeah. It's normal for us. So.
These boys made me realise how difficult it was to stop hooliganism in Holland. They were determined to fight at unexpected times and secret locations. Police and journalists had suggested that these quicker, more intense clashes could lead to another murder, like Beverwijk.
You got the First World War, you got the Second World War, and the third is coming up.
Hooligans in Holland, I think it will never stop.
So despite the government's efforts to stamp it out, hooliganism looks set to escalate in Holland and threaten its liberal society.
Dutch society has changed. People are very hard to each other, distance, and I think that's the way of Dutch life now.
I've experienced a totally different side to the liberal sorted Holland that I expected. I've seen the level of hate between these firms, and it's getting worse. I think the Dutch urgently need to solve their hooligan problem before it's too late.
I'm not a murderer, not yet. If you touch one of my friends, I'll fucking kill you.